Hello, guys. How are you doing? I hope that you are doing well. Uh, this is Gabriela Alvarez and Luis Meneses, and today we're going to present you March, Book 1 by John Lewis and Andrew Aydin. So we're going to start a little bit with the summary. So this is the story of a congressman who has been through many difficult situations in life. So in order to save and fight for the rights of the humanity, the story starts with a little guy called John Lewis who lived in Alabama in his childhood. So he and his family were Black. So at the time that the rights for Black people were not enough, so their lives were a little bit like complicated due to the white people's privileges and treats. So at this time, John cared about his animals and used to treat them with respect in the same way that he would like that people treat each other, no matter race, age, money, or gender. So due to that, he thought that the best idea was becoming a preacher. So being a preacher helped him to be near people and transmit his thoughts and knowledge about life and respect in order to create a new world full with love and respect. So during this time, and he had in his hard work with people, he met Martin Luther King, who was a leader of American civil rights movements. So he organized a number of peaceful protests as head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So in that period of time, there were many movements in order to try that white people accept the Black people were the same. So they deserve the same opportunities. So John Lewis loved the idea of those movements, and he decided to be involved in all of those circumstances in order to change the Black people rights. So at the end of the different movements and participation in many areas where the only white people were accepted, there was a march, the most important march in which the world changed, accepting Black people and treat them as white. So all of us treat them as normal. Those pictures are examples of the march that were placed in Washington, D.C. So now we're going to continue.
Hello friends, my name is David Meneses. I'm going to talk about John Lewis. John Lewis was born on February 21st, 1940. He died last year, July 17. He was an American politician, statesman, and civil rights activist, leader who served in the United States House of Representatives for Georgia's 5th Congressional District from 1987 until his death in 2020. He was the chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee from 1963 to 1966. Lewis was one of the Big Six leaders of groups who organized the 1963 March on Washington. He fulfilled many key roles in the civil rights movement and its actions to end legalized racial segregation in the United States. In 1965, Lewis led the first of 3 Selma to Montgomery marches across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, in an incident which became known as Bloody Sunday. State troopers and police attacked the marchers, including Lewis. John Lewis grew up in a farm in Alabama. Once he went to Buffalo City, New York, he realized about the differentiations of what white people and Black people in his town, and he started to be more aware about that condition, something that will impact in his future. Otis Carter was his uncle, and he took John Lewis to Buffalo City for first time. He motivated him to be part of the nonviolent community movement by that age. Another important person in John Lewis' life was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was the one who helped John Lewis in the case of Troy State because this University of Troy didn't allow black people to be part of it. Martin Luther King Jr. was an inspiration for John Lewis, but also Jim Lawson. Jim Lawson was a member of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Lawson trained students in nonviolent tactics. When Jim Lawson was giving a class and John Lewis was present by the time, John Lewis realized the vocation he had to help people and to finish the segregation of black people in Nashville. And that's why the Nashville movement of students came up. The co-author of this book is Andrew Aydin. Andrew is a Turkish American comic writer, known as the digital director and policy advisor to Georgia Congressman John Lewis. He is also a graduate of Trinity College in Hartford and Georgetown University in Washington. Andrew wrote his master's thesis on the history and impact of Martin Luther King and the Montgomery story. Now we continue with stylistic characteristics.
Thank you. So now, guys, in this point, the characteristic of this book is putting the society in context of the history and all the circumstances that people had to live through in order to have an equal life and have the same treatments no matter race. So we consider that this book as a tool in order to know where we are come from and all the challenges that people went through to be today as we are. On the other hand, we consider this book as a realistic, in which it shows some leaders by taking into account that some of those leaders without the society could not work or go ahead of the problems. So all people were important in the movement and in the society, in which they share same interests to be treated as equal and with the same rights. So to conclude, we consider that this book could be used as motivational, in which no matter what your dream is, helping others and share your interests could work in group to achieve your goals.
Following with this presentation, we are going to approach the thematic discussion. First of all, what are some political alternatives to fight discrimination and injustice? Well, to fight discrimination, it starts by education in the school. It should start in the school by determining diversity, inclusion, and creating non-prejudice engagement. Also in the workplace, with equal opportunities and good treatment and equal services for families with no discrimination. As a civil right, marching can be a political alternative under concrete and formal requests. It is mentioned in the book that to fight discrimination, there's no need to use violence. The best way to fight discrimination and injustice was to create the sit-ins where they showed they wanted to have the same rights as white people. Now, at first, it was an inoffensive attack and with few people supporting the movement. But after some events around the country where people were very upset and some black people were attacked, after that, the movement increased the quantity of people and there was a massive movement of students along Alabama and Nashville with multitudinal pressure through a non-violence march. In that march, people won the rights of being equal. Now let's continue with what to do when those fail. When those fail, there are more alternatives. of political movement. Sometimes it is necessary the force, but today it is known that the violent political movements never practice peace among people, and the conditions that people are asking will never be guaranteed. When those alternatives fail, as I said, there are more alternatives to explore, as the case of John Lewis and his crew. They were persistent. There should be support of thousands of people who get different law treatment and avoid injustice among races, religion, and cultures. In most of the cases, marching. And finally, how to cultivate awareness about civil rights. For instance, in philanthropy, every single human being is seen as equal. To cultivate awareness about civil rights, there should be union of people promoted by education, government support, social movements, organizations, and laws that can help to endure penalties for racism, discrimination, and all act that attacks the human integrity. When the government gives the same treatment, quality of services, such as school, housing, employment, and low-class population support are supported, the population of the state or that country and the city will be aware of the conditions they are living in, about the rights that are being covered, and everybody can support each other in case something injustice happens. In Colombia, the scenario is different, of course. Still existing organizations and people, honestly, we are aware of the corruption, for example, but it's really hard to get together people against the power. Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoy this about the book March, book one. Thank you so much. Have a good day.